Well, I think the word is shukran, but that's 35 years old in my experience. And I think good evening from memory is Masa al-Kia, is that right?
No.
Okay. I think since we are talking about radical things, I should just explain that the surname King is Norwegian for shepherd. I don't have any. The first time, and this is the third time that I've been in Parliament, and this is the longest time I've been here, was in the 60s. And they say if you can remember the 60s, you weren't here. But I was. They say the 60s was exciting, but the first time I was here was to hear the second reading of the Highland of Scotland Cereal Bill. So, at the risk of flattery, this is already more exciting. There was no Jimi Hendrix, no Beatles, no Rolling Stones when I came here last time. I'm here with a colleague, Andy Slater, who knows as much as I do about the topic we're about to talk about. Also, in the interest of brevity, I've restructured my speech, and there are two white papers on our website that talk about this phenomenon called the Waku, the World Currency Unit. They weren't written by me, they were written by coherent people. One's called Silvano Stagni, who used to be in the Olympic team for Italy, and his abiding memory is of Mark Spitz's feet disappearing down the Olympic pool. And the other's by a Scottish gentleman who thinks in German because he lives in Germany, Switzerland, he thinks in German, and he's just going out to Afghanistan as a development economist. So we've got two authors, and they put two things together about this phenomenon that we're calling the Waku, the World Currency Unit, and I will define that in a few moments' time. Now, let's leave the cereal bill behind, because today we are debating far more weighty measures. War, I've heard mentioned, austerity. We're talking about out of its depth materialism. We're talking about poverty, debt, taxes. And these are hardly objective nouns and phrases. And I'll say why I'm saying that in a moment. And so I'm delighted that the WDX Institute and the WDX are here to introduce a small but hopefully optimistic component into the discussion. We're here to describe our offering, the Waku, and we often describe it as apolitical. Nothing here tonight that I've heard so far is actually apolitical. Now let me go further. The Waku is the result of mathematics and process. And it's also involved in the area of economics. And economics has, and I'll say right away, wrongly, been portrayed as scientific. Wrongly. Positive economics is what I read about when I was at university, and it was the world of Samuelson and Lipsey, who wrote books, textbooks, and we're nowhere near where they were at the moment. So it isn't a question of at the margin, but at the very heart of matters. All economics is political economy, and listening to the discussion, I'd be more than delighted to say it's moral political economy. This is the first time that our idea has been exposed to this sort of discussion, moral, philosophical discussion. In the social sciences, there is no controlled experiment. We don't know if it's a short bridge or a long bridge, but if we go down the long bridge, we'll never know how the short bridge worked, etc., etc. And all the time, people are using power to affect others. There's no neutrality. So when we say we're apolitical, I think we have to define what we mean by it. Mathematics, also very, very briefly, in a memorable book that was meant to hit back at Dawkins and his atheism, which we talked about earlier, a very profound scientist called Dennis Alexander, who wrote a book called Rebuilding the Matrix, someone used the word matrix, said mathematics is just wonderful and is a mystery. So here am I talking about something that's apolitical, based on a process, and mathematics. Sounds very apolitical. But we're here because we think we have a component of a new financial architecture which will make a difference when it is more fully used. And as Moeen said, it is now being used. We do now have traction. We have people who have signed to use this idea. So what is the Waku? The Waku is a basket of currencies. It's a basket of the currencies that make up the 20 most powerful economies of the world as currently defined by GDP. The unique factor about the Waku is that it does define it by GDP rather than trade weighting. And we do that because until there is an economy on the moon, until your booster rockets have worked, the world doesn't have a balance of payments problem with itself. So we use GDP rather than weighting. There's also a refined mathematical point that if you have 3 standard deviations of world money, in terms of risk management, you've got a beta very close to 1. So it reflects world money. Now, you might say, so what? What this means is that the Waku wobbles less. Now, that's a very technical term, I know, but the Waku goes up and down less than other things, like the dollar, like sterling. Now, I know we might want to get rid of foreign exchange, but I don't think that will happen next Tuesday. I don't think it will. This might be a route forward, but we don't get rid of any other currency at the moment. We just float on top. But because of the wonders of mathematics, it's less volatile. Now, someone mentioned the word casino, and one of the people that we're working with has said, you know, that at the moment there is a casino effect for people who are trading goods and services. People who are putting their shoulder to the wheel to make real things like food, tractors, and so on and so forth. If you sell I don't know if the Swedes build any tractors, but if they do, and they sell them in Mexico, they don't know what they're going to get for that activity. Now, in 1853, when that fire was happening, mankind could measure physically to a millionth of an inch. I don't think there's any financial engineer on the planet that could get within 10% volatility on a foreign exchange rate over 3 months, 2 years, 3 years. So physical engineers have done a lot better job than financial engineers, and you've all said that in various different ways. So if you want to read more about the Waku, and if you want as philosophers to test us, because this, as I say, this is the first time that we've put the Waku in the philosophical arena, please do. I think the chairman would like it if I was fairly brief. There are lots of other features about things. If China does continue to flourish, then it will probably overtake the American economy in GDP. When we started this idea, China was way down the list. The 5th economy in the world was the Canadian economy. So I commend it to you as a possible component and a possible optimistic component in what, listening to everybody today, is clearly a huge uphill intelligence test. And thank you very much.